Imagine a prestigious university that just spent $20 million on a new innovation center.
Oh, yeah. The ones with the floor-to-ceiling glass walls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Glass walls, espresso bars on literally every floor.
Yeah.
Glossy brochures mailed out to every alumni promising this bold new future.
Right.
Yet, their actual engineering graduates don't even know how to code a basic database.
Yeah, that happens a lot more than people think.
Or, think about a local government that puts out these sweeping, beautifully written proclamations about environmental stewardship. Meanwhile, the actual municipal water pipes are literally rusting and failing underground.
It is a classic problem.
We see this everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's this massive structural gap between what an institution says on a billboard its ideals, and what it actually does in reality.
It's true. And, it's not just a minor annoyance anymore either.
No.
When the world of ideals, our values, our purpose, our sense of justice drifts completely apart from the world of operations, our budgets, physical logistics, everyday consequences, competence doesn't just dip.
It collapses.
Exactly. Institutions completely lose their ability to adapt to reality. They just get trapped in their own public relations.
Well, we are going to figure out how to actually close that gap today. Because based on the sources we're examining, we are focusing squarely on Chapter 2. Which lays out this really comprehensive blueprint for building what it calls a Diamond Civilization.
Yeah, the Diamond Framework.
Right. It's a framework that forces ideals and operations back together by mapping out the 4 interacting spheres of society. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because if we want to solve the problem of our PR not matching our plumbing, we first have to understand the playing field we are actually operating on.
Absolutely. And I think the core premise of Chapter 2 is that a society or, a massive corporation or even a local school board does not function as a single monolithic system.
Right. It's not just one big machine.
No, not at all. You can't just pull one lever in the boardroom and expect the whole system to change direction on the ground. Instead, human organization is composed of 4 distinct interacting spheres.
4 spheres. Okay.
And every single one of these spheres has its own unique logic, its own incentives, and its own hard constraints. Most modern governance failures happen simply because leaders try to treat these distinct spheres as if they all operate on the exact same rules.
Which they definitely don't. Let's break down those 4 spheres because they really reframe how you look at the news. The first sphere the text identifies is politics.
Right.
But it's crucial to note they define this much broader than just, elections or who sits in parliament.
Yeah, it's not just about politicians.
Exactly. In this framework, politics is about who we are. It's a sphere that establishes shared values, collective identity, and public character. It essentially defines the ethical boundaries of power.
Right. And when the political sphere is healthy, it elevates responsibility. When it's toxic, it incentivizes factionalism.
But defining who we are politically is, well, it's utterly useless if you can't actually pay for it, right?
Exactly. The values need a wallet, which is where the second sphere takes over, economics.
Economics, got it.
So if politics is who we are, economics is how we resource action. It's the mobilization of production, human capital, financial systems, supply chains.
Basically the logistics.
Right. It's the raw allocation of resources to pursue whatever values the political sphere just decided were important.
So you have the why and the who in politics and the how in economics.
Yes.
But all that resourcing has to actually land somewhere in the real world. You can't just spend money in a void.
Right. It has to materialize.
Exactly. And that is the third sphere, the physical environment. This is where we act. We are talking about material reality here. Geography, climate, soil fertility, concrete, steel.
The heavy stuff.
Yeah, this is the sphere of hard, unforgiving limits. I mean, you can have a grand political vision and billions in economic funding, but if your agricultural plan ignores the actual soil acidity...
Or your energy grid isn't weatherized for a winter storm.
Right. Reality is going to win. The physical environment literally does not care about your budget.
It absolutely does not. The physical environment is where human intentions meet the laws of physics.
Well said. And the consequences of that meeting point lead us directly to the fourth sphere, which is the social milieu.
The social milieu. Oh.
This is how we live together. It's the realm of trust, community networks, family structures, and shared norms. It's basically how everyday people make sense of their collective experiences.
Like how they decide whether the system is actually working for them or not.
Exactly.
Now, this is where I have to point out, a massive flaw in how a lot of managers and politicians operate. You look at these 4 distinct spheres, and it becomes glaringly obvious that you cannot copy-paste a solution from one sphere into another.
Oh, definitely not.
The text highlights a detail that I found just completely striking about this. It's about trust. Trust is the currency of the social milieu.
Right. It's entirely social.
But you cannot legislate trust politically. You can't just pass a law demanding people trust each other.
It doesn't work that way.
And you cannot purchase it economically either. It only emerges from, repeated lived experiences of reciprocity.
Yeah, that makes sense. Think about a wildly toxic workplace. If you have a terrible, cutthroat company culture, which is a social sphere, problem management can't just throw an end-of-year bonus at everyone and expect instant harmony.
Right. That's an economic solution to a social problem.
Exactly. You can't buy social cohesion.
What's fascinating here is that no single sphere can ever explain civilizational success or failure on its own. They are just constantly grinding against each other.
Right.
And pressure in one always travels to the others. So your political values might dictate your economic priorities, but the physical environment places a hard ceiling on what that economy can physically build.
And if it can't build it?
Well, if that economic system fails to deliver, it fractures the social relations, which in turn destroys the legitimacy of the political system that started the whole thing in the first place.
That's a completely interconnected web.
Completely.
But, okay, if society is siloed into these 4 very different spheres, and each one is essentially speaking a different language like values, money, physics, and trust, how does anything actually get accomplished?
That is the big question.
Right. How do you manage a process across all 4 without it just completely falling apart?
Well, that is the core utility of Chapter 2. It introduces this visual model called the Diamond Cycle.
The Diamond Cycle.
Yeah. It's an 8-sided process framework for getting things done effectively across these divides. The stages are task, plan, develop, implement, assess, reflect, learn, and character.
Okay, that's a lot of stages.
It is, but cyclical management models aren't entirely new, right? Business schools have taught PDCA loops for decades.
Plan, do, check, act. Yeah.
Right. But the true insight of the Diamond framework is realizing that at a societal level, this cycle doesn't happen within one sphere. It happens across them.
Okay, let's make this concrete for you listening, because just hearing the abstract list doesn't really do it justice. Let's walk through the text example of a nation deciding to achieve energy independence.
That's a great example. So it starts with the task. The nation collectively decides, we value self-reliance, we want to achieve energy independence. That decision happens strictly in the sphere of politics. It's a debate about identity and values.
Then we move to plan and develop. The nation has to model the funding, allocate the tax revenue, and actually train the engineers to build the new technology.
Right.
So the process is now moved out of values and firmly into the sphere of economics.
Exactly. And next comes implement. They pour the concrete, they build the solar farms, the nuclear plants, the transmission lines.
Getting their hands dirty.
Yes. And those structures have to immediately withstand real-world weather, material limits, and geographic constraints. So the cycle has now entered the physical environment.
Okay, and once it's built, we hit the assess stage. Like, what actually happened? Are the citizens getting reliable power when they flip the switch?
Did household heating costs go up or down?
Right, so this assessment phase actually spans the physical environment and the social milieu, because it's measuring physical output against how people are actually experiencing it in their living rooms.
Exactly. And based on that experience, the society enters the reflect and learn stages. Citizens, media, communities, they all discuss the realities of this new energy grid. They make sense of the trade-offs, they adjust their norms, and figure out what needs to change.
And that happens in the social milieu.
Yes, and that public sentiment feeds right back up into politics.
Which brings us to the final 8th stage, character. Through this entire grueling process, by completing this cycle, the nation ultimately becomes characterized by either foresight and competence or by dependence and failure.
Yeah.
That new character, that new national identity resets the political sphere for whatever task comes next.
The contrast here is between what the text calls Newtonian linear thinking versus this diamond cyclical thinking.
Newtonian thinking.
Yeah, the linear mindset is just event, then reaction.
Yeah.
Problem, then policy.
It's almost unsettling to see it mapped out like this because it exposes why so many of our modern crises just feel endless.
You really do.
The linear mindset treats every wave of a problem as a brand new, isolated event, Like the text brings up the pandemic response. A linear thinker creates a panicked lockdown, reopen cycle.
With no memory built into the system.
Exactly. No memory. But a diamond approach forces a continuous loop. You implement measures, assess the real-world physical data, reflect on the social toll, look at community compliance, learn what actually works, and then adapt the character of the institutions.
It proves that political decisions shape economic plans, which are then tested by physical environments, judged by social experience, and ultimately reshape our political character.
Wow.
And if you miss a step, or if leaders try to bypass a sphere like, say, ignoring the physical realities of the power grid just to save economic costs, the cycle shatters.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Chapter 2 doesn't just show us how to build the Diamond Civilization. It provides a map of what happens when institutions decline.
The dark side of the framework.
Yeah. And it argues that institutional collapse is rarely sudden. It isn't some mystery. It is a highly predictable, step-by-step organizational disease that cascades across these exact same 4 spheres.
The framework actually calls it the Collapse Cascade.
Collapse Cascade.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just like the diamond cycle of growth moves through the spheres, the cascade of decline does too. But it destroys capacity at every single step.
Where does it start?
It always starts in the sphere of politics, and it starts with a very specific psychological condition, which is anxiety.
Wait. How does anxiety in the political sphere kick off a systemic collapse?
Well, it happens when political systems or even corporate leadership structures begin rewarding loyalty over competence.
Oh, right.
You end up with leaders who fundamentally lack the skill, knowledge, or experience to fulfill their responsibilities. And deep down, they know they are unqualified.
Imposter syndrome, but justified.
Exactly. When you are in a high-stakes position that you know you can't handle, you become anxious. So rather than defining clear tasks and making bold, informed decisions, these leaders prioritize self-preservation.
So they just surround themselves with yes men.
Right. Uncertainty replaces confidence, and the primary goal of leadership basically becomes hiding their own incompetence.
So the political sphere is completely frozen by the leadership's anxiety. They just refuse to make a real decision.
Yes.
And that hesitation bleeds directly into the sphere of economics, where it mutates into avoidance.
Avoidance, yeah.
The text has a great analogy for this. Think about driving a car with the check engine light on, and instead of taking it to the mechanic, you just turn up the radio so you don't have to hear the engine grinding.
That is exactly what avoidance is.
Because the leadership is anxious and protecting themselves, economic decisions that require courage just get postponed. Budgeting becomes entirely superficial.
Deferred maintenance.
Yes, necessary maintenance is endlessly delayed. The organization actively avoids difficult conversations about resource constraints.
But the tragic irony is, money and resources are still being burned at massive rates.
Right. But actual productive capacity is steadily decaying. Avoidance just becomes the operational DNA of the institution.
But you cannot avoid reality forever. The laws of physics don't care about your internal office politics.
They really don't.
Which brings the cascade crashing into the physical environment. And here, it manifests as accusation.
This is when the check engine light finally explodes.
Exactly. Reality hits. The bridge actually collapses. The water systems run dry. Or, the software deployment completely fails and takes down the company servers.
The consequences materialize.
Environmental conditions violently expose all the weaknesses that the administration spent the avoidance phase trying to conceal.
So the physical outcomes undeniably diverge from those glossy public promises. Reality can no longer be hidden.
Right. But because avoidance and insecurity are already deeply embedded in the leadership, the institution is incapable of an honest assessment.
They can't admit fault.
No, they cannot admit fault without destroying their fragile authority. So instead, they search for a scapegoat. Accusation replaces accountability.
Like, the bridge didn't collapse because we deferred maintenance for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It collapsed because of this specific contractor or this rival political faction or this external enemy.
Yes, it's the ultimate deflection.
And when people see leadership blatantly lying about physical reality like that, the cascade pushes into the final sphere, the social milieu, ending in apathy.
When accusation and blame repeat over and over without any meaningful correction to the actual physical problems, the social consequences are devastating.
People just give up.
They do. Citizens lose confidence, employees mentally check out because, why work hard to fix a problem if management is just going to blame someone else and change nothing?
Right. What's the point?
Institutions settle into this deep, pervasive apathy. mediocrity becomes completely normalized. The text puts it chillingly, actually. It says the society has not merely lost competence, it has lost the belief that improvement is even possible.
That is incredibly bleak.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's crucial to understand that anxiety, avoidance, accusation, and apathy are not just bad moods.
They aren't just feelings.
No, they are a mechanical chain reaction. Anxiety forces avoidance. Avoidance guarantees physical failure. Failure generates accusation, and persistent, uncorrected accusation inevitably ends in apathy.
And once that cascade is established, it just reinforces itself.
Exactly.
Which is terrifying, because we can all point to institutions in our lives that are currently sliding down that exact slope.
Oh, absolutely.
It brings up the most crucial question, though. If this collapse cascade is a known, predictable sequence, how do we interrupt it? If my company or my city is stuck in this doom loop, what is the actual fix?
Well, the framework provides a very deliberate antidote. It tackles each stage of the cascade directly with its opposite. Institutions have to cultivate a countersequence: awareness, anticipation, accountability, and adaptability.
Okay, I have to stop you there because I know what you, the listener, are thinking. Awareness, anticipation, accountability, adaptability.
The A words.
Yeah, these sound like those cheesy motivational posters you see in a corporate HR department.
Oh.
You know, the ones with the picture of a mountain and a bold buzzword at the bottom.
I know exactly the ones you mean.
How does this actually work in practice? Let's strip the corporate paint off these terms.
Fair enough. I agree they sound like jargon until you look at the ruthless mechanics behind them. First, to cure anxiety in the political sphere, they must cultivate awareness.
And what does that mean mechanically?
This doesn't mean mindfulness. It means structurally installing competent people who can assess brutal realities without fearing for their jobs. It means firing the yes men and hiring people who tell the truth.
Oh, so actual structural change. And second, to cure avoidance in the economic sphere, the text says you must cultivate anticipation.
Right.
Wait, but isn't anticipation just another form of anxiety? If I'm hyper-focused on everything that could go wrong with the budget or the supply chain, doesn't that paralyze me just as much? How do we separate healthy anticipation from panic?
That is the critical distinction. Anxiety is about self-preservation, worrying how a failure will make you look. Anticipation is about systemic preparation.
Got it.
Practically, anticipation means giving the accounting department or the floor manager the psychological safety to report a massive budget shortfall or a critical error without being fired.
So they don't have to hide it.
Exactly. It requires a structural change in how bad news is delivered and received. Instead of kicking the can down the road, you model the long-term needs and build capacity before the crisis hits.
So anticipation instead of avoidance, which leads to the physical environment. To cure accusation, you must demand accountability.
Yes.
Again, not as the boardroom buzzword. If the bridge falls down, accountability means looking at the tensile strength of the steel and the deferred maintenance logs.
You don't look for a political rival to blame.
Right. You own the physical reality no matter how ugly it is.
And finally, to cure apathy in the social sphere, you must cultivate adaptability.
How does that cure apathy?
Well, you want to know how you measure trust. You measure it by adaptability. When employees or citizens see that awareness, anticipation, and physical accountability are actually leading to changes in behavior, when they see the system learn from a mistake, they re-engage.
Oh, because it's not hopeless anymore.
Right. They shed their apathy because they realize their efforts actually matter again.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I want you to challenge yourself to look at your own life, your own company, or your local community through this lens. Where are they in the cascade?
It's a great exercise.
Is your management team currently trapped in the avoidance phase? Turning up the radio to ignore the grinding engine? Or has the physical reality already started breaking down and everyone has slipped into accusation and finger-pointing?
Finding the root cause is essential.
Exactly. Being able to diagnose exactly where the dysfunction lives is the very first step to injecting awareness and anticipation back into the system.
This raises an important question about how we view the end goal of all this, actually.
How so?
The Diamond framework isn't just about making corporate workflows more efficient. It fundamentally redefines the concept of character.
Character.
Yeah. In modern society, we tend to treat character and ethics as fluffy, aspirational inputs. We write a nice mission statement, put it on a plaque, and just sort of hope people act well.
Right, like it's a personality trait.
But the Diamond cycle treats character as a concrete, operational outcome. Character is simply what an institution becomes through repeated cycles of practice, feedback, and accountability. It structurally reconnects skill and virtue.
It takes it out of the realm of PR and puts it into the realm of process.
Yes.
It asserts that you cannot have a society with high moral character if it lacks the operational competence to actually execute its values in the real world.
Precisely. Competence is a moral imperative in the Diamond Civilization.
That is incredibly powerful.
But
Let's briefly recap the journey we just took through Chapter 2.
sure.
We started by de-siloing our world,
Right.
exploring the 4 spheres of society, politics, economics, the physical environment, and the social milieu.
Right.
We saw how the 8-stage diamond cycle actually weaves through all 4 of those spheres to translate our abstract ideals into physical reality. And we learned how to spot the deadly collapse cascade, where leadership anxiety breeds economic avoidance, which leads to physical failure and accusation, ultimately ending in social apathy.
It is quite the journey.
It is. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought based on this idea that character is an operational outcome, not an aspirational input.
Okay.
If the character of a civilization, or even just the character of your workplace or your own household, is simply the sum total of its repeated processes.
Wait, well, what does your organization's daily routine say about its true character?
That's the real question.
Are your daily operations accidentally practicing the steps for apathy? Or are you actively, intentionally building a diamond?
Gives you a lot to think about.
It really does. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. It's been eye-opening to say the least. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we will catch you next time.